Greetings and welcome to a spooky lessons with Odin. On this episode, I will be showing you how to make these adorable Witches Broom earrings. Now, a lot of you guys have really been wanting more wire working tutorials from me, and it's not really my strong suit, but I just thought of this as I was doing work on the continuation of the Octoberween festivities, so I'm going to be using one of these, and it's going to be so cute. So, you can really play around with colors on this. I kind of like how this gradiated wire ended up in the broom handles, and I've got some spooky dangly bits because it kind of looked plain by itself, but that is what we are going to be doing this week. For this project, you will need some heavier gauge wire. I recommend no smaller than 20 gauge, but 18 to 16 would be better. And playing with colors would be really fun too, so be sure to experiment, or you can go traditional with some regular copper. Some super thin wire. I would go no greater than 24 gauge, and you can even go as small as 32. I'm going to be using this 28 purpley gradient kind of thing, and then a 22 gauge wire or 24 gauge in order to put the binding on. So you want something contrasting that'll show over your bristles, or not. You can make everything blend too, it doesn't matter. Do what you want. You will also need an assortment of beads and charms to dingle-dangle on the end of your broomstick. You're going to be using all of the wire to fasten them together, as well as an assortment of jump rings. I have a larger ring to kind of hold all the chains, all the charms together, and then some small ones to just kind of make the transition a little smoother. You will also need some ear wires to hang your earrings on. You will also need your wire shaping tools. I have some flat nose, round nose, some cutters, as well as some shears for the thinner gauge wire. Some sort of glue, like crazy glue or E6000, is also recommended. And probably most importantly, a fork. A plastic fork. Or some other sort of shaping tools. And something that might be of assistance to you as well is Scotch tape. Let us get started! So we are going to start by assembling our collective of dangly parts. And I'm just going to show you how to do one because a wrapped loop is pretty simple. You can also do this with a head pin. I have 22 gauge wire here, but since we're dealing with so much wire, I don't really see the point to getting head pins, because we have this. So, all I'm going to do, I have about a 3-inch piece of wire, which is overkill, but I like to work with a lot. So I'm just going to take the tip and fold it in half, so that we end up with a little hooky bit like that. Gonna thread on my beads. Down to the bottom. And then I'm going to form a wrapped loop to seal that up. So I'm going to grab it most of the way to the bead. I'm going to twist 90 degrees away from me, wrap the loop around the tooth, pull it out of the tooth, stick it on the bottom tooth, finish my loop, and then wrap around once. Like that. I'm going to clip my end short, and then smoosh the sharp end in. And now I have one dangly part. Do that for the rest of your pieces, and if you have large charms like this, just put a jump ring right on that hole. For these stars, since they have such a wide space in the hole, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to thread it on and then fold up my wire over it right on top, and I'm just gonna hook it down like that, so you've got like a hook that catches the star. I will put my other bead on top of it, and then I will put my wrapped loop on. Make sure that when you put your loop and your wrappings, make sure that is very tight so that the bottom hook can't move. And then you can push this down or even cut it a little shorter if it's too long. Then once you're done with all of your pieces, you're just going to slip on jump rings to kind of make them dangle a bit better. And I'm just going to open one up, slide my dangly part in, and Smoosh it together. And once you have everything in place, you're going to take your larger jump ring and thread on your dangly parts. So that they end up in a nice collective, like so. Your small jump rings may work as well. You're going to set those aside, and then we're going to work on the main handle of our broom. So I'm going to take about 1.5 inches of my wire, and I'm going to make a bend in half of my one end. I don't want a perfect round on here. I kind of want it to just like curl over naturally, so I'm just going to do that and push it in, because I don't want a giant hole either. Like that. Clip it. Squish it neat. Like that. And then it's up to you what you want to do with the rest of the wire. You can keep it straight like a regular one, but I think it has a lot more character if you kind of intentionally kink up the broom handle so it kind of looks like a gnarly, kind of like a gnarled tree. So I kind of like putting in some artificial waves into it. Whoops, not that much. Just to give it a bit more character. Then you can attach your collective onto the open ring here. Push it close. And there you have it. So it kind of dangles that way. Now we're going to get to the fun part. Take your fork and break it. Break off a tine because it's too wide otherwise. And then what you might want to do is take some tape and wrap it around the tines so that the ends are a bit thicker and that it makes a nice little stopper for the wire that you're going to wrap around it. Like so! So then you're going to take your tiny, tiny thin gauge wire and start wrapping around the fork in a fairly even tension. And it doesn't have to be too neat because this part doesn't really need to be very accurate. So we're going to continue wrapping it until we feel like we have enough or we get sick of it, because that is bound to happen. That looks pretty good to me. Nice, very full broom I'm going to make. Now we're going to cut it. We can either cut away from the fork or break this one and get yourself another, because these are plastic forks and no one cares about them. So, cut off your excess and free your little mess here. Pull that out. And then we're going to squish. This is what we end up with, kind of like a shredded wheat biscuity thing. So shrink it, squish it flat. You can use pliers to help. In fact, pliers are probably good for this. We're just going to kind of smoosh. And we'll gather these up. Now, we're going to attach it to our broom stick. If you're comfortable with getting your hands covered in glue, I would recommend putting some E6000 on here first. Then you're just gonna shove it in there as high as you want it to go, and don't worry if like it sticks out or anything, because you can totally cut that short. Then you're gonna kind of mush everything together so that you form somewhat of a broom-like shape. Now you're going to take your contrasting color of 22 gauge wire and you're going to cut off about a 2 to 3 inch piece. Going to bring it underneath our broom and then wind it around, pulling tightly so that everything bunches together. If you need your pliers to give yourself a bit more torque and to shrink everything together, use that. But wind it once or twice. I've kind of divided it into the halfway point of the wire here, so I'm going to wrap here once or twice with this side, and then wrap once or twice on the other side, and call it good. Then I'm going to cut my ends short and tuck them inside the piece, as well as squish this wire together. so that we try to make this not slip as much, but it's gonna happen, hence the need for the glue on the other side. So, you tuck that, you situate that, you do your final bends, and then you are good to go. Repeat that with your other broom, and we'll attach our ear wires. And when that's all said and done, it's up to you what you want to do with the ends of the broom. You can leave it like that if you're afraid of it scratching, or you can also trim the edges so that it forms more of a bristly bit. If you're using a really thin gauge wire, like 30 and up, you don't have to worry too much about these being all pokey, because this feels kind of like a boar bristle brush kind of deal, and they aren't really sharp. If you are worried about that, you can line it with a coat of nail polish, and that'll soften up the edges a bit, or you can also do some filing. Then, when that is all said and done, you're going to take another jump ring, put it on to that hook at the end of the handle, and attach an ear wire. And then you will have your finished earrings. These are really cute. Totally play with the colors on these. You can make them extra festive and Halloween-y. I would definitely recommend using a heavier gauge wire for the handle, just because that's what you need. I think to make it more broomy looking, because you can kind of see the difference there. It's only 2 gauges, but it makes a nice difference. So I originally made these to go inside of my little domes because I didn't want to sculpt anything, and it looks like I'm gonna have to shrink this out. But to know a little bit of a sneak peek ahead, I'm going to be using these domes, making little sceneries inside here. So be sure you are subscribed if you want to see more spooky bullshit from me. I've got a whole series dedicated to this project, and I'm going to basically have a wrap around that. I'm going to bead around this once it's finished, but next week I'm going to show you what I do to fill these things. But yes, I think that will do it for me. If you guys decide to make these, be sure to share on Facebook at our Facebook group, Creations from Lessons with Odin. I'd love to see what your interpretations are like and how you try these out, because I think it's a very cute little thing. And very spooky. So I hope you guys are having fun in this Octoberween. Be sure to share with me any stories of autumn beadings you plan to do. And yes, be sure to check out my sci-fi book. It is incoming. The end is coming very soon, actually. I have some very exciting news that I will be announcing soon. Upcoming, so be sure to check out for that. And I think that will do it from me. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and of course, if there's anything I need to be trying out right now, feel free to let me know down below, and I will see you next time.